The usual thing we do around about this time on a Wednesday morning, it is Tech Talk. Here we go.
It's time now for the latest news on what's hot and what's not in the world of technology with Mathew Dickerson on Tech Talk. Here on TCFM 88.9.
Morning, Matt. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, Richard. Good to see you in the virtual sense again.
Yes, virtually is the word. We're going to talk about, first of all, I mentioned this yesterday to encourage listeners to be listening right now, a virtual barber. What can a virtual barber do, for heaven's sake?
In this whole COVID-19 world we're living in, there are some occupations that seem to transfer reasonably well to working from home or in isolation. Obviously, haircuts isn't one of those things. So if you're a hairdresser or a barber, then you'd be sitting at home going, well, what can I do now? And there's one group of barbers that's come up with a very innovative idea. And if you go to a website called youprobablyneedabarber.com, you can actually hire your own personal barber trainer, and they'll teach you or show you how to cut your hair. Now, I imagine it's probably a bit tricky if someone's sitting there on a camera while you're holding the clippers or holding the scissors. So you probably need to enlist someone else in your household that's there with you in isolation to help out. But the barber will basically set up you with a webcam and internet connection and basically watch what you're doing and instruct you what to do to give you a professional, a question mark, haircut. But the idea is that you're still using their skills without using their hands and physically doing it for you. So it's just another way that people are trying to cope with the situation we've got.
Yeah, well, anyway, I'm follically challenged, so it's not going to worry me. Along the sides it might, but the top's a bit thin. Mate, people are not allowed to go for a drive just for any reason. You can drive to the shops, you can drive to, say, for a medical appointment, those sort of things. But people who just like to drive, and there are plenty of people out there, I understand that you can get your motoring fix, and you've got 5 ways of giving people their motoring fix, and what are they?
Yeah, look, there's a number of different ways, and some of them are involving the traditional, if you want to call it that, gaming. So things like Gran Turismo, Forza Horizon. So those two ones in particular, one of them, Forza Horizon 3, for example, you can go for not just a racing drive, but a drive around different areas that show you different scenery. And that particular version, in version 3, shows you some great Australian scenery. So you can do drives around a whole range of different areas in Australia and basically be in control of the vehicle in a virtual sense on your PC or on your Xbox and actually drive around and do that. Gran Turismo is basically a racing game and that works better if you've got racing pedals, a steering wheel, basically set up your own little cockpit to sit there and actually race on tracks around the world, and you can be Michael Schumacher or Sebastian Vettel, whoever you might want to be. You can even race at Bathurst, although for some reason they don't have V8 supercars, but you can actually race on the Bathurst track and race sports cars around there. So there's a whole range of different tracks you can race on, again, to get some of that fix. If you go for a more sedate version, Audi's put out a video or an app called The Drive, and basically what you do with that is you sit back for 4 hours and watch a drive. And Audi have done exactly that. They've just videoed a 4-hour drive, and then they've got different camera angles, different parts of the scenery. One part's through the New South Wales Central Tablelands. So you can just sit back and basically enjoy the drive, maybe go for a couple of hours, have a coffee, or though you're not in the car, so you can actually have a beer during that drive. You're not worried about going drink driving in that particular drive. A much safer way to do it, and enjoy a driving experience, although you'll be sitting in the comfort of your home. Another 2 quick ones, Harley Davidson have got a YouTube channel there, allow you to do a bit of meditation, and if you put on a VR headset, you can actually enjoy that ride, that meditation ride with a Harley Davidson, and get that as close as possible feeling with that surround sound in your eyes as well as your ears. And the last one is a couple of motoring magazines have gotten together, and those motoring magazines have said, give us details of your favourite drives, your favourite scenery. Tell us what you're going to do when you can finally get back behind the wheel of a car and really just experience the thought process of talking about it. And what they're trying to do is get their communities to share their ideas and share their drives they've done in the past to get people interested and excited and anticipate when we finally can get back in the car one day and just go for a drive for the fun of it.
Yep. Oh, look, some great ones. Actually, the drive from Audi is a good one, and I did a little bit of it. I looked at it yesterday, and there's a really nice one around Cairns and the Tablelands in that part of the world too. It's a beauty. So have a look at that one if you haven't been north. It does a little bit of the reef, but then it goes into the Tablelands and shows you the rainforest, and it's all rather nice.
Yeah,
so there you go.
Yeah, so look, different concepts. I like the idea that people are coming up with different ideas.
I think it's great. Now tell us about the LG Velvet. This is interesting.
Well, I can't tell you much. I can't tell you the price. I can't tell you the release date. I can't tell you.
That's why I asked you.
I can't even tell you the exact specifications. So for a launch of a new mobile phone, it's the most lacking in detail launch I've ever seen from a launch of a mobile phone. What I can tell you is they've changed their naming scheme. So normally phones are numbered. So we've got the Samsung is up to the Galaxy S20. We've got iPhones up to the version 11. So most phone manufacturers come out with a new version, add a year to it or add a number, or in this case, Samsung added 10 numbers to it in this particular year. But the LG have called theirs the Velvet. And they're trying to capture the characteristics that make that phone unique. And so I think I like the idea where they're headed. They're trying to say, well, we're not just going to number it like everyone else. We want to be a bit different. I'm not sure how much people will go, hey, look at my Velvet. I'm just not sure if that name captures everything about a mobile phone, but that's what they'll be doing. And I'll be really interested to see what they do next. So this is the Velvet. What's the next version going to be called? Is it going to be called the Granite? Is it going to be called the Suede? I mean, who knows? Someone in their marketing team has come up with some range of ideas.
Not trying to sound misogynist at all, but in fact, the Velvet may appeal to females, because of the softness of it, or the sound of Velvet making it soft. I like your idea of Granite. The blokes will pick up on Granite. But anyway, we'll see what happens.
For those hard blokes out there, they need some Granite.
Yeah. I watch Seven, mate.
That's right.
I do that. Yeah. I wash my car once a week. Look out. What's happening in New Zealand between the 5G rollout and in New Zealand? Is something awful happening there?
Well, we did talk last week about the fact that there are conspiracy theories out there that 5G is spreading the coronavirus. And obviously that's ridiculous. There's no technical way that can happen. But the latest conspiracy involving 5G, because there's got to be a weekly conspiracy involving 5G, is that the lockdown in New Zealand around the coronavirus is not anything to do with the coronavirus. It's just so the government can get the 5G network rolled out without anyone noticing it. So while everyone's locked away in their homes, the technicians are going to come out, put up the towers, install 5G everywhere, and then people will come back out of their homes and not really notice there's anything to do with 5G. And I actually found one site that was a fact checker, as some sites do. They go through and actually check the facts. And when you break down the facts of this one, I mean, it's ridiculous anyway, if you think about this whole idea of 5G just being put in while the coronavirus lockdown's happening. But it started back in August 2019, the rollout of 5G. And when one government official was interviewed, he actually said, because there's a lack of staff working on the planning processes and a lack of technicians out there installing 5G, the coronavirus lockdown, if anything, will actually slow down the rollout of 5G towers. But again, conspiracy theorists, you've got to give them points for trying. They just keep coming up with some great different, creative thinking, nothing to do with facts or reality, just some creative thinking.
Yeah, very creative thinking. Matt, it's 27 past 9. I'd like you to stay on the line. I've got to cover bits and pieces here. I want to ask you, and I know you've done a little bit of research on this, about the Prime Minister and wanting to create an app to inform people about the coronavirus. I'll come back to you in just a moment if you can spare the time. You haven't got any further commitments, have you?
I've got 15 minutes up my sleeve, Richard, so that's all yours.
Right, mate. Well, we'll be back in just a moment.
We at Wellington and Dubbo Funeral Home are grateful to the families we serve and appreciate their confidence in our ability to create meaningful, personalised services that helps to begin the healing process. We are dedicated to providing a compassionate, dignified service of celebration and thanksgiving as unique as the life of your loved one. We provide support, personable care and affordable services with your family at the heart of everything we do. Call 6845-2322. Our sponsor, David and Lillian Taylor of Wellington and Dubbo Funeral Home.
Now, you can talk to David and Lillian about your funeral and about the numbers that are available and the numbers that can attend your funeral. It does vary, and the situation does vary. And the number 10, while it is figuring prominently, 10 people can go to the funeral, more can in some cases. So talk to David and Lillian about that. DCFM 88.9, it's 28 past 9. Matt, got you back on the line. I suppose this is tech talk in some ways, but the Prime Minister wants us to follow the Singaporean lead of getting an app on our iPhones to let people, or to let us know that we've been near someone who is infected or people who may be infected. And it's very Big Brother stuff, and we're going to be followed. Can you tell us more?
Yeah, there's a few things to look at in this, Richard. One of the things that's important if we do go down this path is to get the numbers enough that you'll actually have an effective tool. You need about 40% of people to install the app. And when you look at the Singaporean model, only about 20% of people, and Singapore, I think, would be a fairly compliant group of people over there.
Yeah,
so only 20% of people there actually installed the app. So the effectiveness of the app in Singapore was not seen or deemed to be absolutely perfect because of the low installation rate of the app. So you're relying on a whole range of things. One of the things that came to mind, and I'll talk about Apple and Google in a moment and what they're doing, but one of the things that came to my mind when I first heard the Prime Minister talk about this was that probably the people who need the app installed the most, the people who are most at risk, are obviously the elderly in our population. And obviously the elderly are the ones that are least likely to install an app, or some of them don't even have a smartphone. I mean, there's obviously high penetration of smartphones in our society, but the group that has the lowest penetration is the group that's 60 and over, and that's the group that we really want to know about that. So that obviously poses another issue. But I suppose one of the things I thought of was that the Australian government sounds like they're almost reinventing the wheel to a certain extent. Apple and Google, and it's very rare for Apple and Google to jump into bed together on any project, but this pandemic is so big that Apple and Google have actually said that they're working on a project together, which is basically the concept we're talking about here with the Australian government. They're basically doing that on a worldwide basis. And again, I thought, well, if they're going to do it, why don't you go and back them and allow them to do it? So essentially what would happen is, if I'm near you, our phones would exchange via Bluetooth, and Bluetooth uses low power and is only good over short distances. So Bluetooth would exchange between your phone and my phone a token that says those two phones have been close together. No information has been shared. It doesn't matter whether they're Apple phones or Android phones, they'll share that information. And then later on down the track, let's say, for example, in a week's time, you find out that you've got COVID-19. You simply, on your phone, acknowledge the fact that you've got COVID-19 without any of your personal details, and then every phone that you've been close to over the preceding week or 2 weeks, whatever the time frame might be, will be notified that you've been close to someone. It doesn't say who, it doesn't say where or when, it just says in the last incubation period time frame, you've been close to someone who has now been identified with COVID-19. So either self-isolate or go and get yourself tested. And having that on the worldwide basis, to me, makes probably more sense than each government trying to come up with their own in Singapore, in Australia. Even in the UK, I saw the NHS, the National Health Service, were looking at something similar. But again, if Apple and Google, two giants of the tech world, are going to do it, jumping on the back of their information would make more sense.
Yep, it does. I was worried from the Big Brother point of view of, I was quite prepared to sign on to the app when I got a few details, but how do you get out of it, and are you going to be followed for the rest of your life, and those sort of things. And we've had Google and Apple getting into Siri and so on, and I was a bit worried about it from that point of view. But the way you've explained it, that Google and Apple have got into bed together on that one, yep, I reckon that's worthwhile signing up to. Yeah,
that's right. And I think you are right to be concerned about privacy and about data. There have been some obviously large examples of companies over the last 10 years that have had some major privacy breaches and have been using data in ways they shouldn't have been using it. And to some extent, I'm thinking that let's put that to one side for the moment, and trying to get on top of this pandemic is probably the number one focus, and let's hope those companies are doing the right thing, but then let's look at it as we go forward, and let's not stop the whole thing because we're worried about privacy. Let's make sure we have some caution there, but as we get on top of this pandemic, we can then go and investigate further that data and what we're doing with it. And I know it sounds like throwing away privacy, but I think just this pandemic, if we can do anything to stop the spread of this, obviously it's going to be better in the long term for our entire society.
I agree on you, Matt. Good on you, Matt. We'll talk to you next Wednesday, Tech Talk. Thanks for your time this morning.